And just when she thought life had finished with her, it threw in another twist. The so-called madman everyone mocked. The one with ragged clothes, dirty hair, and eyes too sharp for someone crazy. The one people laughed at, spat at, and avoided like plague. He became her unexpected comfort. The one who held her when no one else cared. The one who stood by her when her uncle locked her out of the house. The one who showed her much love and who she eventually married. And when she got pregnant, the mockery doubled. Triple even. Uncle Felix nearly burst his belly laughing, convinced Linda had officially destroyed her life. And though she couldn't possibly know it yet, this madman would become the only ally she had left in the world, and eventually the twist her enemies never saw coming. Watch the full story now. Grab your popcorn and suya and dive into this exciting combo. The full story. She was only in her 3rd year at university when life decided to play its cruelest joke. One minute she had parents, a roof over her head, and a future bright enough to blind anyone. The next, boom, everything crumbled like a poorly baked meat pie, both parents gone. Just like that. Meet Linda Okoro, smart, hard-working, full of dreams. She wanted to graduate, become a nurse, and actually make a difference. But life doesn't care about your big dreams, does it? Overnight, Linda became an orphan. And worse still, she was handed over to the tender mercies of Uncle Felix, the kind of man who could sell sand in the desert and still find a way to cheat the buyer. Yes, Uncle Felix, smooth talker, forever smiling. The kind of uncle that greets you with one hand and steals from you with the other. While the mourners were still crying at her parents' burial, he was already calculating bank accounts, houses, cars, everything her father ever worked for. And when he finally showed his true colours, it was game over for Linda. He grabbed everything and left her with nothing but memories and debts. But let's rewind a little, because before tragedy knocked on their door, the Okoro household was the kind of family everyone wished they had. Their house wasn't a mansion, but it was a home. A real home. Joy everywhere, noise everywhere, food everywhere. Her mother, Nurse Gloria, was the heartbeat of the house. Always in her crisp white uniform, always smiling, always ready with a plate of food or a word of prayer. The woman was so respected at the hospital that people whispered her name like she was some kind of saint. At home, though, she was just Mama. Loving, strict, and sarcastic enough to keep everyone in check. Then there was her father, Chief Ben Okoro. Tall, commanding, with a voice that could make even market women keep quiet. He ran his business like a king, but at home he was that goofy dad who told stories, laughed too loudly, and ate like food was running away from him. He always said, "Money is just a tool. Don't ever kneel down and worship it, because the day you do, you're already poor." Wise words, right? Shame his own brother never listened. And of course, the ever-smiling Uncle Felix was always around, slapping backs, cracking jokes, pretending to be everybody's best friend. Chief Ben trusted him blindly, but sometimes when money was mentioned, there was this little flicker in Felix's eyes, like a hungry lion that just spotted meat. But Chief, being Chief, never noticed, or maybe he just chose not to. That last morning together, it started like every other normal day. Gloria kissed her husband, straightened his shirt, and told him, "Remember, a life saved is a life blessed." He laughed, promised her pineapples later. Linda, rushing out with her books, rolled her eyes when her mum tried to give her another lecture. "Mama, please, if you talk again, I'll miss my lab." They all laughed. They all drove out in different cars. None of them knew that was their last morning as a family. On the highway, life struck. A truck driver swerved to dodge a pothole and rammed straight into Chief Ben's car. Metal crunched, glass shattered, screams filled the air. Back at the hospital, Gloria was on duty when they wheeled her husband in. Imagine that, the healer being forced to watch her own husband bleeding out. She tried, they all tried, but fate had other plans. Chief Ben died, and Gloria, in her shock and grief, collapsed. Internal bleeding. Within hours she was gone too. 2 coffins, husband and wife, buried side by side, and in the middle of it all stood Linda, barely 20, shaking like a leaf in the Harmattan breeze. She kept whispering, "Mama, how do I live now? Papa, what do I do?" And who was crying the loudest at the burial? You guessed it. Uncle Felix. Oh, the drama. He fell on the ground, beating his chest like Nollywood had given him a script. "Why, God? Why?" he shouted. People looked at him with pity, thinking he was the most heartbroken of them all. But Linda noticed the smell of alcohol on his breath, noticed how fake the tears were, noticed how his eyes darted toward the crowd, calculating, always calculating. When everyone left, the house turned into a museum of memories. Her mother's scarf hanging on a chair, her father's cap on the console. Everything still there, but the owner's gone forever. The generator hummed, the fridge buzzed, the clock ticked, but for Linda, nothing worked anymore. That night, Linda could not sleep. The house that once rang with her mother's laughter now sat like a graveyard. Every tick of the clock felt like thunder in her ears. So she wandered into her parents' room, the room she had sworn never to enter without knocking. Now no one was there to answer. On the bed lay her mother's Bible, open like it'd been waiting for her. The margins were filled with Gloria's neat handwriting, little prayers, reminders, underlined verses. One line caught her eye, bold and underlined twice. "When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I." Linda pressed her forehead to the page and sobbed until her tears blurred the ink into blue rivers. By the time she lifted her head, the last visitor had gone. The wailers, the sympathizers, the professional criers, they had all disappeared. Only Uncle Felix remained, standing at the window with his hands behind his back, staring into the compound. His eyes scanned the buildings, the cars, the land, not with sorrow, no. He was calculating, measuring. But when he turned back to face her, his face wore the kind of sadness that deserves an Oscar. "Linda," he said softly, placing his heavy palm on her trembling shoulder, "don't worry, you are not alone." Broken and naive, she nodded, not realizing she was nodding to a wolf. "Your father's businesses cannot run themselves," he continued smoothly, his voice dripping like honey laced with poison. "Suppliers, accounts, properties, someone must handle them. You, my dear, are too young, so let me carry the burden for you. Focus on school. Focus on arranging the burial. I'll take care of the rest." "Thank you, Uncle," Linda whispered, too shattered to question. And that was the beginning of her nightmare. The death of Chief Ben Okoro and Nurse Gloria was not just a family tragedy. It was a full-blown hurricane that swept away everything in its path. The funeral came like a thief, too soon, too cruel. The compound overflowed with mourners. Some cried real tears, others rehearsed theirs like they were auditioning for Nollywood. The choir sang hymns that sliced through the air, but no sound could soften the sight of 2 coffins side by side. Linda stood at the graveside, trembling, clutching a handful of sand. As she dropped it, her voice cracked. "Mama, how do I live now? Papa, what do I do?" And beside her, who cried the loudest? Uncle Felix. He fell to his knees, slapped the ground, and screamed like heaven owed him an explanation. "My brother, my sister, why now? Why leave us?" The crowd shook their heads in pity. At least Linda has her uncle, they thought. Poor fools. If only they knew the devil they were pitying. When the funeral ended, silence settled in the house like a suffocating blanket. No prayers, no visitors, no laughter. Just Linda, sitting alone in her mother's room, clutching Gloria's scarf and inhaling the faint scent of perfume that still lingered. She told herself she had to continue school. That was what her parents would have wanted. What she didn't know was that the storm was only beginning. 3 weeks later, Linda returned from class and froze. The compound was full of strangers. Men were loading her father's cars into a truck, carrying boxes, scribbling notes like auditors on a mission. "What's going on here?" she demanded. "By order of Mr. Felix," one man replied without looking up. "He is now managing Chief's properties." Her heart pounded. She stormed inside, and there he was, Uncle Felix, sitting boldly behind her father's desk as if it had been made for him. "Uncle, why are you taking Papa's things?" she cried. Felix leaned back in the chair, laced his fingers across his stomach and smirked. "Linda, my dear, you are too young to run businesses worth millions. Your father trusted me. If I don't step in now, everything will crumble." "That's a lie," she shouted, tears in her eyes. "Papa never said that. These businesses are mine. I am his daughter." And then the mask dropped. His eyes hardened, his voice turned sharp. "Be careful, girl. You have no power, no money, no husband. If I abandon you, what will you eat? Where will you sleep?" The words sliced into her like a blade. For the first time, Linda saw his true face. From that day, her father's empire crumbled piece by piece. The bank accounts? Emptied. The spare parts business? Mysteriously transferred to Felix's name. The family house? Declared too big for her and conveniently taken over. Even the workers who once bowed to her as Ogre Pekin now licked Felix's boots. Then came the final humiliation. One evening, sipping palm wine like a king, Uncle Felix looked her dead in the eye. "Pack your things. Go rent a small room near your school. This house is no longer for you." And just like that, Linda was thrown out of the mansion her father built. Relatives? They sided with Felix. The law is slow, they said. Let him handle things. Cowards. At 20, Linda found herself in a one-room apartment with a broken ceiling fan, surviving on tiny savings and the pity of classmates. Food became a prayer point. Some nights she slept on an empty stomach, her belly echoing like a drum. Some days she walked long distances because she had no transport fare. But she pushed on. Her mother's words rang in her head. "Finish what you started. You are a nurse in the making." She studied under streetlights when NEPA failed. She endured the whispers in the neighborhood. See Chief Okoro's daughter, once living in glory, now begging to survive. She will end up as somebody's housemaid. How the mighty have fallen. And if the whispers weren't enough, Felix made sure to add salt to her wounds. "You see, my dear, life humbles everyone," he taunted. "If you had listened to me, things would be different." His wife joined in with her venomous smirk. "And who will marry you now? You better accept your fate." Their words were meant to crush her, but Linda wore her dignity like armor. She refused to bend. One scorching afternoon, as her body screamed from hunger and exhaustion, she saw him. He was not Hope, not at first sight. His hair hung in wild dreadlocks, his shirt was torn, his slippers didn't even match. People crossed the street when they saw him coming. Children pointed, women hissed, men spat. "That madman don't come again," someone sneered. "Nah, government suppose carry him go yabba left," another replied. To the world, he was nothing but trash, a nuisance, a walking eyesore. But Linda noticed something no one else did. Every time their eyes met, his gaze wasn't empty. It was steady, sharp, almost piercing. That afternoon, as she trudged home from class, she heard footsteps behind her. She spun around, ready for trouble, but it was him, the madman. He stretched out a hand. In it was a nylon bag. Inside, bread, fresh bread. Linda frowned. "For me?" He nodded, lips twitching into something that might have been a smile. "I can't take this. I don't even know you," she whispered. But her stomach betrayed her. It growled so loudly even he heard it. He pressed the bread into her hand and walked away without a word. That night, as she ate in the glow of a cheap candle, tears dropped onto the bread. It was the only food she had seen in 2 days. From that moment, he began to appear often. Sometimes with food, sometimes with small, crumpled notes of money, sometimes with nothing but his silent presence when the weight of the world crushed her shoulders. The world still mocked him. "Madman! Dirty man! Waste of space!" they shouted. But Linda knew better. Something about him was different. Something about him was steady. One evening at the university gate, Linda stood quietly waiting for a bus. Just a few steps away, her so-called madman was standing, eyes fixed on her like a guard dog. Protective, watchful. Of course, students noticed, and students can never mind their business. The moment they saw Linda, Chief Benacoro's only daughter, standing close to a dreadlocked man with torn slippers and a face that looked like it had fought the sun all day, the whispers started. Then the laughter followed. Chai! See Linda O! From riding her papa's Prado to standing beside a lunatic. Life don't humble her, one boy shouted. Another girl hissed, Better watch Am. Very soon her children go day bark at night. Madman peeking no day hide. The laughter grew louder. Some spat on the ground in disgust. Others laughed until they nearly collapsed. Linda's ears burned, her face hot with shame. But when she turned to look at him, at Raymond, he wasn't laughing. He wasn't ashamed. His eyes carried a strange calm, a quiet strength that somehow kept her from breaking apart. And strangely that steadied her more than anything. By the next week, the gist had spread like bushfire. In her department, at the market, even in her neighborhood, everywhere. Linda wasn't Chief Ben's daughter anymore. No, she had a brand new title, the Madman's girlfriend. Of course, this sweet gist did not take long to reach Uncle Felix. One evening he summoned her to his house. His wife, Stella, sat beside him with that kind of smile that is not a smile. It was a smirk dripping with insult. So it is true, Uncle Felix began, his voice oozing fake pity. The daughter of my late brother, the pride of our family, now moving around with a street madman. Linda swallowed hard. Uncle, he is not what people think. He has been good to me when nobody else cared. Felix burst into laughter so loud the windows almost vibrated. Good, a madman? My dear, the only thing a madman can give you is bones, rags, and madness. Maybe one day, if God helps you, both of you can open a psychiatric clinic. He will be the patient, and you the nurse. His wife Stella cackled like a hyena. At least he will keep her company in the gutter. Husband and wife sharing dustbin. Tears burned Linda's eyes, but she refused to bend. She stood tall, her voice clear and sharp. Uncle, mock me if you want, shame me if you like, but at least he has never stolen from me, unlike you who stole everything my father worked for. Boom, thunderbolt. The room fell silent. Uncle Felix's face changed instantly. His eyes bulged, veins stood out on his forehead. You dare talk to me like that? Foolish girl, he shouted. Linda shook as she left the house, but inside her chest there was a strange pride. For once she had spoken the truth. Weeks turned into months. Life became tougher. Sometimes Linda thought she wouldn't survive. But every single time she was at the edge of giving up, Raymond showed up. Sometimes with enough money to cover her tuition. Sometimes with brand new textbooks. She never asked how, and he never explained. He would simply hand it over and walk away, leaving her puzzled. One night, after coming back from school hungry and tired, she saw a small envelope under her door. She opened it. Inside, 50,000, enough to pay her fees. On the front, written in shaky handwriting, were just 3 words, "Don't give up." She pressed the note to her chest, tears soaking her cheeks. Friends had abandoned her. Relatives mocked her. Even the church had turned cold. But him, this man everyone spat at, was the only one holding her up. The bond grew. And as days rolled into nights, Linda began to see beyond the dreadlocks, beyond the tattered clothes. She saw the courage, the gentleness, the strange loyalty. So when one evening Raymond stammered through his words and asked for her hand in marriage, she said yes. Not because she was desperate, but because she had seen the man behind the mask that the world never cared to see. Their wedding? Please, let's not even call it a wedding. A few plastic chairs in a small church, a sweating pastor who struggled to find the right words, and 2 witnesses who looked more bored than blessed. No convoy, no loudspeaker, no jollof rice, just Linda and Raymond, whispering vows like fragile secrets. Outside, people were already gossiping. "Na prayer meeting dem do? That's not wedding. Chief Ben's daughter reduced to this?" When Uncle Felix heard, he threw a whole feast at his house, not to celebrate, but to mock. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, glass of wine in hand, Our dear niece has finally chosen her destiny. She has married a madman. Let us toast to her foolishness." The crowd roared with laughter. His wife Stella clapped her hands and added, "At least she won't need to worry about paying rent. Mad people are used to sleeping on the street." The mockery spread everywhere. People pointed fingers as Linda passed. "Look, that's the madman's wife." But Linda had learned to keep her chin high. Even when her heart was bleeding, she refused to bow. Their small one-room apartment was more like a shoebox than a house. A leaking roof, a kerosene stove, a creaky cupboard. When it rained, Raymond dashed around, positioning bowls under the leaks like a soldier in battle. When it was hot, the room became a frying pan, and Linda studied with sweat dripping onto her notes. Food was a luxury. Most nights it was Gary and groundnut, or just plain water. Yet somehow Raymond always had enough for her school fees. One evening, Linda held the crumpled naira notes and asked, "Raymond, where do you keep getting this money?" He avoided her eyes. "Don't worry about me. Just focus on your dream. Finish school. Become the nurse your mother always wanted." Linda's throat tightened. She held his hand, the same dirty hand the world mocked. "Even if the whole world calls you mad," she whispered, "to me, you are my angel." He gave a faint smile, but deep inside, storms raged. Because what Linda didn't know was that Raymond was not what he appeared to be. Every morning he left the house in rags, but instead of roaming the streets, he disappeared into the polished offices of his empire. He wasn't begging. He wasn't scavenging. He was sitting with his staff, signing checks, moving pieces on the vast chessboard of his hidden kingdom. By evening he returned home, dust-covered, slipping back into the role of the madman. And only Linda saw the man behind the disguise. Not a billionaire, not a boss, but the quiet companion who refused to ever abandon her. One hot afternoon, just a few weeks before exams, Linda nearly fainted when she got to the university bursary. "Your tuition is cleared, Miss Okoro," the cashier said casually, stamping her receipt. Linda blinked like someone slapped her. "Cleared? Paid? Who? Who paid it?" The woman didn't even raise her head. "I don't know. It's cleared. Next." Linda clutched the receipt like it was a golden ticket from heaven. She rushed home, breathless, her sandals slapping the dusty road. "Raymond!" She shouted the moment she entered their small room. "They said my fees are paid. Completely! Who did this? How?" Raymond, sitting on the floor pretending to fix a broken lantern that had been dead since 1999, looked up slowly. He shrugged. Maybe God touched someone's heart. Linda froze. Her throat tightened, tears burning her eyes. She dropped to her knees and hugged him so tightly that the lantern rolled away. "You don't know what this means to me." She cried against his chest. "I thought I would drop out. I thought Mama's dream of me becoming a nurse would die with her. But now, Raymond, now I have hope again." He wrapped his arms around her, but inside his chest was a battlefield. Joy, because she loved him even in his disguise. Pain, because he longed to tell her the truth, that it wasn't somebody, it was him. That the madman wasn't mad at all, that her suffering would soon end. But he stayed silent. Not yet. The time wasn't ripe. As the months rolled by, their love only grew deeper. Linda discovered something she never thought she would. Happiness wasn't in big weddings, flashy cars, or expensive lace. Happiness was in the little things. It was in Raymond waking up before dawn to fetch water so she wouldn't be late to class. It was in him sitting quietly beside her when she read by candlelight. It was in the way he hummed small tunes when she got overwhelmed. One evening, as rain poured heavily and the roof leaked like a sieve, they sat hungry, their stomachs growling like angry drums. Linda turned to him, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Raymond," she whispered, "even if I never wear a white wedding gown, even if I never live in a mansion, I will never regret marrying you, because when the whole world mocked me, you stood by me. When I had nothing, you gave me something. You are my husband. You are my treasure." Raymond's eyes burned. He quickly looked away so she wouldn't see the tears fighting to fall. To the world, he was a madman, but to her, in that moment, he was a king. Not long after, Linda noticed something unusual. Her body was different. She bought a small pregnancy strip, and when the 2 red lines appeared, she froze. Her hand went straight to her stomach. Tears filled her eyes, tears of fear and joy mixed together. Fear because poverty was already choking them. Joy because this little life was proof of love. When she told Raymond, he nearly broke the roof with his smile. He dropped to his knees and pressed his lips against her belly, whispering, "Our child, a prince or princess born of fire and love." But outside their room, the news spread like wildfire, and in the mouths of enemies, blessings quickly became gossip. Uncle Felix almost died laughing when he heard it. A madman's child? Ha! This is the final disgrace. She has wiped her father's name from history. His wife, Stella, added her poison. Good, let her rot with her lunatic. They will both die poor. She deserves it. But they weren't satisfied with mocking. No, they began plotting. If Linda was carrying a child, they would use that as a weapon to tighten their grip. A few days later, Stella called Linda with a sugary voice, sweeter than overripe mango. "My daughter," she cooed through the phone, "you are carrying life. You must not be alone. Come home tomorrow. Let us talk like family. You know blood is blood." Linda sat in her one-room apartment, hand-rubbing her small belly, listening. She wanted to believe. She wanted to think grief had softened Uncle Felix. She wanted to believe family still meant shelter and not trap. "Okay, Auntie, I'll come," she whispered. Raymond, watching her with his steady eyes, said quietly, "If you go, you will not go alone." Linda touched his arm. "It's just talk. Maybe they finally remembered I'm their own." He nodded, but his jaw tightened. He wasn't fooled. To be called mad was one thing, but to be treated like blind was another, and he saw. The next day, under the scorching Abuja sun, they walked hand in hand to Felix's compound. The iron gate opened slowly like a hungry mouth. At the entrance, 2 guards blocked Raymond. One of them wrinkled his nose dramatically, as if the sight of Raymond's dreadlocks was poison. "Madman, go back. Ogre say you no fit enter." Linda's hand gripped his. "He's my husband." At that moment, Uncle Felix appeared on the veranda, smiling like he was hosting a naming ceremony. "My dear niece, come in, come in. You must not stand in the sun in your condition," he said smoothly, his eyes sliding over Raymond as though he were a stain on white cloth. "Let her come. You go," Felix told him. Raymond's voice was calm but firm. "Where she goes, I go." Felix's smile tightened, his teeth flashing but his eyes dark. "This is still my house." A silence stretched sharp as a blade. Then Raymond leaned close to Linda, brushing her cheek with his knuckles. "I'll be nearby. If anything changes, knock. I will hear." Linda nodded. He stepped back. She followed them inside. At first, everything looked normal. Stella fed her mango juice and sweet words. She called her our daughter so many times it almost sounded real. They laughed, they chatted. The afternoon melted into evening. "Sleep here tonight," Uncle Felix said, voice dripping sugar. "The road is bad. Tomorrow we will talk about school, hospital, baby, everything." Linda hesitated, then agreed. Surely one night in the house where she once felt safe could not harm her. But at midnight, her eyes flew open. She heard footsteps, whispers, the jingle of keys. She sat up on a thin mattress in a small windowed room, not the guest room. No, she was in the old storeroom behind the boys' quarters. The air was thick with dust and cobwebs. The iron bolt clanged shut from the outside. Her chest tightened. She ran to the door and pushed. It didn't budge. She pounded. "Uncle, Auntie!" A slot in the wooden door slid open. Uncle Felix's cold eye stared at her. "Rest," he said flatly. "You need discipline. That madman will not ruin you further." Her voice cracked. "I am your brother's child. Open this door." Felix's eye hardened. "My brother is gone, and you, if you love him, you will sign what I give you, for the good of the family." The slot snapped shut. The lock settled like a final judgment. Days melted into each other. Morning came with a bowl of watery pap shoved under the door. Sometimes plain rice, sometimes nothing. A bucket in the corner mocked her dignity. Heat pressed on her until she could hardly breathe. Her baby kicked as if whispering, "I'm here. Don't forget me." When the generator roared at night, she pressed her ear to the window grills, listening to women gossiping, smelling Stella's stew, tasting freedom only in her mind. She spoke to her child, her hand on her stomach. "I will not let them sell us to the dark. I promise." Uncle Felix returned often, papers in hand, voice smooth but sharp. "You will sign that your father's estate remains under my management until you are stable. You will sign that day-to-day business belongs partly to me. After all, didn't I help him?" Linda's voice was low but firm. "Lies," he chuckled. "Paper is not truth or lie, my dear. Paper is power." The slot snapped shut. Sometimes Stella came too, leaning close, perfume drifting through the crack like a taunt. "When you are reasonable, you will move to a better room," she purred. "Until then, enjoy your prison." But Linda refused to break. She saved her strength like a miser saves coins. She stretched her body, whispered her mother's psalms, turned folded cloth into pillows and stubbornness into blankets. Hunger came and went. Insults rained, but inside her, fire burned. Every night, the compound went quiet after Uncle Felix and his family stuffed themselves with food that didn't even belong to them. But Linda's small prison, her mother's old storeroom, never knew quiet. Hunger had a voice, and it growled in her stomach like a lion that refused to be tamed. And somewhere in the shadows of the compound, a man in rags waited. The one everybody mocked as Raymond the Madman. They said his brain had taken early retirement, but Linda wasn't so sure. There was something in his eyes that didn't match his dirty shirt and tangled hair. On the third night, while she lay half asleep on the hard floor, she heard it. A soft sound at the window, tick-tick, like a lizard dancing on the zinc. Linda's heart jumped. Slowly she crawled to the barred window and peeped. There he was, Raymond. Not fully man, not fully shadow, just there. His eyes glowed in the thin light like someone who knew far more than he was saying. "Don't talk," he whispered, his voice thin as a breeze. His hand slid through the bars and dropped something into her palm. Linda looked down. A sachet of clean water. 2 packs of prenatal vitamins, a piece of bread wrapped in newspaper, and 1 small folded note. Her eyes burned. Bread? Vitamins? Water? Not even Uncle Felix, who claimed to be her guardian, thought of that. She sank to her knees, tears dripping, whispering, "Thank you," even though he told her not to speak. She unfolded the note. The handwriting was sharp and steady. "Hold on. Don't sign anything. 2 days, I will return." Hope rose in her chest like someone had just lit a candle in the dark. Suddenly, lights snapped on in the main house. Voices carried through the night. Linda shoved the bread under the mattress, hid the vitamins inside the hem of her wrapper, and pressed the note against her chest like it was her heart itself. Footsteps approached. She froze, forcing herself to breathe silently through her mouth until the footsteps faded. When the noise died, she turned back to the window. Raymond was still there, standing as if carved into the night. He didn't move until the silence swallowed the compound again. "If they threaten you, don't speak," he whispered. "If they starve you, remember this. Emptiness is not absence. God is even in empty rooms. 2 days, Linda." Her throat tightened. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but only one came out. "Our child is kicking." Raymond's lips curved slightly. "For joy," he said, and melted back into the dark. The next morning Uncle Felix returned with a new strategy. Oh, he was a man of many tactics, switching tricks like a magician who'd run out of rabbits. This time, religion. He dragged in a man in a stiff black suit, Bible so big it looked like a weapon, and introduced him proudly as Pastor Emmanuel Onu. The so-called pastor placed one heavy hand on the storeroom door and started shouting. Not praying, shouting. "Spirit of madness, leave this family! Spirit of shame, depart!" His voice thundered like he was competing with a loudspeaker. Linda sat on the floor listening. Half the time she wanted to laugh. The other half she wanted to scream. She had seen real pastors before, the kind who carried your brokenness carefully like a basin of water. This man? He carried performance. And then the threats began, cleverly wrapped as prophecy. If you refuse to sign those documents, calamity will follow you. Your unborn child will suffer. Linda stood, walked close to the door and spoke calmly through the wood. Sir, real prophecy doesn't come with blackmail. For a full second, silence. Then Uncle Felix's hiss cut through the air. You see her stubbornness? You see it? They left in a rage that smelled like kerosene. The door stayed locked. That evening a woman came to wash plates in the backyard. Middle-aged, head tied with a colourful wrapper, eyes kind and sharp. She glanced at Linda's window and whispered, My name na Mama Comfort. I live next compound. She quickly slid a small bowl of okra soup through the bars, her movements quiet as a thief. Your husband give me small money, she murmured, nodding toward the shadows. He say make I day help you. Good man, that one. Linda nearly broke down. They say he's mad, she whispered. Mama Comfort's mouth twisted into a knowing smile. Mad? Sometimes I look into his eyes, I see sense we pass book. No worry, my daughter, God day. While Uncle Felix was celebrating his imaginary victory, somewhere else in the city, a different battle was gathering. Not with guns, not with noise, with silence. In a modest office downtown, phones buzzed, men and women moved like air, visible but unnoticed. They gathered Chief Ben Okoro's old documents, land titles, import licenses, bank ledgers. Lawyers prepared affidavits. A banker flagged Felix's suspicious transfers. A weary court clerk lined up files. And at the centre of it all, Raymond. No ragged shirt here. He wore a plain, clean shirt, dreadlocks tucked neatly under a cap. His voice was calm, measured, no need to shout. People leaned in when he spoke. 2 days, he told his chief of staff, Mr. Ocon. By then she must be free. No police want her peace first. The war will come after. Yes, sir, they replied. He nodded, softer now. She has been alone long enough. At dawn the next day, Raymond showed up boldly at the compound gate. The guards burst out laughing before their mouths even fully opened. Enon! Raymond the Madman Don Show! Come to drop another prophecy. He didn't argue. He only said quietly, Tell your ogre. By sunset that door will open. By tomorrow this gate will open, and in 2 days his lies will open him to the whole world. The guards laughed harder. Carry your madness, go, a beg. But as Raymond walked away, one junior guard shivered without knowing why. Some men don't need uniforms to wear authority. Inside the storeroom, Linda pressed her hands against her stomach, feeling the baby tumble. She had eaten soup, swallowed vitamins, slept a little. She felt stronger. Keys scraped against metal. The small slot on the door opened. Uncle Felix's greedy eye peeked in. Last chance, he said. Sign the documents. Linda lifted her chin. No. His smile was thin as a razor. Then prepare yourself. I'm already prepared, she said, voice steady, and I'm not alone. He snorted and slammed the slot shut. And then, outside the compound, an engine purred to life. Not the noisy cough of a generator, not the weak rattle of a taxi. This was different, deep, expensive, powerful. The guards craned their necks. A neighbour's child pressed his face to the fence. Even Felix's wife parted the curtain. A sleek black sedan rolled slowly to the corner of the street and stopped. No siren, no drama, just pure heavy presence. The baby kicked so hard Linda gasped, clutching her stomach. A laugh escaped her lips, mixed with tears. I know, my child, she whispered. I hear it too. Freedom is close. She shut her eyes and saw Raymond's small note again. Just 3 short words. Hold fast. 2 days. 3 words, but they beat inside her like a second heart. She clung to them like a drowning woman holding on to driftwood. Uncle Felix thought he had trapped her. He thought hunger and threats would break her. But hope was a stubborn thing. It refused to die. Then neighbours peeped through curtains. Children abandoned their football on the street. Even the guards at Uncle Felix's gate froze, staring. One after another, black SUVs rolled down the road in perfect formation. Their tinted windows reflected the sunlight like mirrors, sharp enough to blind, and at the center of the convoy, a Rolls-Royce Phantom, silver hood gleaming like the crown of a king. "Jesus Christ, who be this one again?" one guard stammered. "Police?" another whispered, his gun suddenly feeling too light. But there were no sirens, no flashing lights, just the kind of quiet authority that didn't need to shout. Uncle Felix rushed to the balcony, wrapper flying, his wife hurrying behind him. Their mouths went dry when the convoy stopped right in front of their gate. The whole neighborhood held its breath. The Rolls-Royce door opened, and out stepped a man, but not the man anyone expected. His dreadlocks? Gone. His ragged shirt? Gone. His beard? Trimmed sharp. On his body sat an Italian suit that looked like it was tailored by angels. He wore dark glasses, but when he pulled them off, the sunlight revealed something that made spines stiffen. Clarity. Power. Sanity. It was Raymond. The same man they had called mad, the same one they mocked on the streets, the same man who shuffled barefoot through markets. Now he looked like royalty come to inspect his land. The guards blinked like goats caught in headlights. Uncle Felix almost lost his balance on the balcony. His wife whispered, "Sweet Jesus, it's him, the madman." Except he was no madman. Raymond walked through the gate without glancing at Felix, without sparing the gossiping neighbors a look. His steps were measured, his shoulders squared, his aura unshakable. He went straight for the back of the compound, straight for the storeroom. Linda heard the footsteps approaching, her heart pounded. She pressed her ear to the door as the bolt scraped. For the first time in days, the iron door swung open, and there he stood. Not in rags, not in shame, but in a suit worth more than Felix's entire sitting room. His presence filled the doorway like light filling a cave. "Linda," he said softly, his voice steady as stone. Her knees almost gave way. "Raymond?" He stepped forward, catching her trembling frame. "Yes, the man you married, the man they mocked, but also the man they never knew." Linda's eyes darted over him, polished gold watch, suit shining in the sunlight. This wasn't madness. This wasn't a dream. This was truth finally ripping off its disguise. "Listen to me," he said, lifting her chin gently. "I am not who they thought I was. I was never mad." Her lips parted, but tears drowned her words. "I am Raymond Tober," he continued, "CEO of Tober Tech. I own businesses in oil, gas, real estate. I am worth billions, Linda, but I disguised myself because I needed something money could not buy." She shook her head in disbelief. "Billions? You? All this time?" "Yes," his eyes softened. "I lived as a madman to test people, to test women. I wanted to see who could love me, not my money, not my power, but me. And you saw me when the whole world spat on me. You defended me when they mocked. You married me when they called me worthless." Linda broke down, clutching his chest, her tears staining his expensive suit. "All this time," she sobbed, "I thought you had nothing. I thought you were poor. I thought—" He held her tighter. "Love tested in riches is easy, but love tested in shame, that is pure. You passed the test, Linda, and now you will never know shame again." She pressed her swollen belly against him, their unborn child safe between the truth and the lie finally broken. Uncle Felix stumbled toward them, his wrapper barely hanging. His wife clutched his arm, her face pale. This cannot be!" Felix stammered. "This man is mad! He was mad!" Raymond turned slowly, his eyes burning like fire behind calm. "Mad?" he asked, his voice carrying across the compound. "Yes, that's what you called me. That's what you laughed at. That's what you used to humiliate her. But tell me, Felix, does a madman own fleets of Rolls-Royce? Does a madman command empires?" Felix's throat bobbed like a fish gasping for air. Raymond stepped closer. His tone sharpened. "You robbed Chief Ben Okoro's wealth. You mocked his only child. You locked her in a room like an animal, and yet you dared to laugh." Uncle Felix's wife dropped to her knees immediately. "Please forgive us. We didn't know." Raymond's voice thundered. You knew enough to torment her. You knew enough to steal, and now you will know me. Even the neighbours outside shivered. Even the guards froze. Raymond turned back to Linda, his voice soft again. Come, leave this place. It no longer deserves your tears. He led her out of the compound. The convoy of SUVs opened their doors. Uniformed men bowed their heads in respect. A chauffeur opened the Rolls-Royce door with reverence. Linda gasped. All this is yours? Raymond smiled faintly. No, my queen. All this is ours. You, me, and our child. Everything I own belongs to us. She stepped into the Rolls-Royce like a woman stepping into another life. The same neighbours who once laughed now covered their mouths, whispering in awe. So the madman is a billionaire, and she is his queen. The car door closed softly, but the message thundered across the street. As the convoy glided away, Raymond held Linda's hand. His voice was low, but each word carried steel. Linda, I made a promise to myself. The day I revealed my true self would be the day I set things right. Felix thought he buried you in shame, but what he buried was his own destruction. I will recover your father's legacy, and when I am done, Felix will kneel before you. Linda's tears spilled again, but these were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of relief, of pride, of love so fierce it scared her. You saved me, she whispered. No, Raymond said, wrapping his arms around her as the Rolls-Royce slid through the city. You saved me. For the first time in years, Linda felt hope heavy in her chest, strong, unbreakable. The convoy rolled through the city like a river of power. Hawkers paused mid-sail. Taxi drivers craned their necks. Market women shielded their eyes. Everyone whispered as the Rolls-Royce passed. The man they once called mad, the woman they mocked, now gliding like royalty. At last, the convoy reached Golden Gates, guarded by men in crisp uniforms. They saluted sharply. Welcome home, sir. The gates swung open, revealing an estate that looked more like a kingdom. Fountains danced, palm trees swayed. A mansion with glass walls and golden balconies gleamed in the sun. Linda pressed her hand to her lips, trembling. Raymond, this can't be ours. He smiled gently. It is. Everything you see belongs to us. She shook her head, sobbing. No, people like me don't live here. I'm the girl they mocked, the one who married a madman. I ate Gary at night. I begged for help. How can this be mine? Raymond cupped her face. Listen to me, Linda. You were never poor. You had dignity. You had loyalty. You had love. That is wealth no money can buy. You deserve this more than anyone. She broke down in his arms, crowned not by jewels but by tears. And the guards, the staff, the entire city would remember that day. The day a mocked girl stepped into her throne beside the man the world had laughed at. Inside the mansion, it felt like Linda had stepped straight into a Nollywood movie. Only this time, she was the leading lady. The staff stood lined up like soldiers on parade, their uniforms pressed sharper than razors. Welcome, sir, they chorused in unison, bowing so low you'd think the floor was magnetic. Then the chief steward cleared his throat, puffed his chest, and added with pride, And welcome, madam. Linda froze. Madam? Her? The same Linda who once used a bucket to fetch water from a leaking public tap? The same girl who ate cassava flakes with palm oil while neighbours laughed? Madam Key. The word hit her like thunder. She clutched her stomach as tears rolled down, not from sadness, but from disbelief. She had been mocked, spat on, and locked in a filthy storeroom like a stray goat. And now, maids in silk uniforms were bowing at her feet. They ushered her into the grand hall, and oh, Jesus, if walls could talk. Crystal chandeliers rained light like diamonds falling from heaven. Marble tiles polished so clean that Linda could see her reflection, and that reflection looked nothing like the woman who once lit candles just to read at night. Her legs grew weak. She sank into the nearest chair and buried her face in her hands. God, is this really me? She whispered. Raymond knelt beside her, his voice steady, almost playful. Yes, Linda, this is you, this is us. They called you a fool for marrying me, But today, that same world will learn who the real fools are. For hours, Raymond walked her through his empire like a tour guide of power. He showed her the boardroom with glass walls, where his executives sat stiff as statues, waiting for instructions. The moment he walked in, they rose to their feet. "Good evening, sir." Then their eyes slid to Linda. "Good evening, madam." Madam again. Linda almost fainted. She lowered her gaze shyly, cheeks hot with embarrassment. She wasn't used to respect. She was used to insults. Raymond wasn't done. He took her to the tech hub, where young engineers clicked away on computers, building software so advanced it could power banks and even governments. "This is Tobatech," he explained casually. "Branches in Lagos, Accra, Nairobi, London. This is just one floor." Linda gasped. "You built all this while everyone thought you were roaming the streets mad?" "Yes," Raymond replied with a half-smile, "and I let them think so. None of this meant anything if I couldn't find love. A love that saw me, not my billions." He took her next to the oil and gas offices, the real estate wing, and even the charity section where widows and orphans were being cared for with scholarships. Everywhere they went, staff bowed to Linda. It was the kind of treatment reserved for royalty, not for a woman neighbours once mocked as the girl who married a lunatic. Linda's chest rose and fell as she whispered, "I don't deserve this." Raymond cupped her face gently. "You deserve even more. You chose loyalty when it was easier to abandon me. You stayed when the world laughed. You, Linda, will sit beside me, not behind me." By evening, she stood on the balcony of the mansion, overlooking Abuja's glittering skyline. The city lights twinkled like diamonds scattered on velvet, yet her mind went back to the nights she studied by candlelight, to the jeers of Uncle Felix's friends, to the hunger that kept her awake. Her voice trembled. "Raymond, I was nothing. They called me names. They spat on me. They said I would die in shame beside you." Raymond pulled her close, eyes soft. "And now?" Linda smiled through tears. "Now I am the wife of a king." She wept openly, but they were tears of victory. Raymond kissed her forehead and placed his hand on her belly. "Our child will never know shame. He will grow in love, in honor, in dignity. But most importantly, he will grow knowing that humility is the true crown." That night, while the mansion slept in silence, Raymond sat in his private study. Shelves lined with books towered around him, maps stretched across the walls, and on his desk lay a mountain of documents, land titles, business records, stolen accounts. Every paper led to one name, Uncle Felix. Raymond's eyes hardened like stone. He had given Linda her joy back, but his mission wasn't finished. Justice had not yet spoken. When Linda walked in wearing a simple silk gown from her new wardrobe, his jaw was tight, his eyes dangerous. "What is it?" she asked softly. He looked at her belly, then back at the papers. "Felix thought he buried you in poverty, but all he buried was his own downfall. Tomorrow I confront him, and when I'm done, he won't just fear me, he'll bow." Linda shivered, half in fear, half in excitement. She walked to him, placed her hand on his and whispered, "Whatever happens, Raymond, I stand with you." He squeezed her hand firmly. "Then let the world prepare." The next evening, Uncle Felix sat on his veranda, sipping expensive palm wine like the king of fools, when the first sound rolled through the neighborhood. Engines. Heavy, growling, unrelenting. The kind of sound that makes even strong men's knees tremble. One by one, black SUVs entered the street, their tinted windows gleaming. Neighbors rushed out, their mouths hanging open. And then, at the center of the convoy, a Rolls-Royce Phantom glided forward like a lion in slow motion. Felix's laughter died in his throat. His wrapper nearly fell off his waist as his hands trembled. His wife rushed to the doorway, eyes wide in terror. Who? Who are they coming for? She already knew. The Rolls-Royce stopped at the gate. The iron swung open on its own. From the car, Raymond stepped out, not the ragged figure of dirty dreadlocks and mad rambling, but a man so polished he looked like power itself. His suit, shoes shining like mirrors, gold watch catching the fading sun. Behind him, armed security spread out like shadows. Neighbours whispered, almost choking. "Is that not the madman? Jesus, he's a billionaire. So Linda is the wife of a king after all." Raymond walked deliberately, like a lion entering enemy ground. His eyes locked on Uncle Felix, who was already sweating like a goat on Christmas Eve. "Felix," Raymond said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the air. "Do you know who I am?" Felix stammered. You are Raymond, but you are mad." Raymond's lips curled. "Mad, that's what blind men call a test they cannot understand. You mocked me, starved my wife, locked her like a prisoner, and laughed. All while I built empires you cannot even pronounce." Felix's knees wobbled. His wife tried to speak, but Raymond silenced her with a glance that could freeze water. "You thought you destroyed Linda, but all you did was push her into my arms. You said she would rot in poverty. Tell me, Felix," he gestured toward the convoy, "does poverty ride in Rolls-Royce? Does poverty command fleets? Does poverty own half of Abuja's skyline?" Felix swallowed hard. Sweat dripped from his bald head. Raymond leaned closer, voice dropping into a whisper that sounded more dangerous than a shout. "Today I only came to warn you, but soon I will return. And when I do, it won't be for talk. It won't be for mercy. It will be for war. Everything you stole from Chief Benokoro, Linda's father, from land to the last kobo, I will take back, piece by piece, until your empire crumbles into dust." He straightened, his eyes blazing. "The next time you hear my engines, Felix, pray, because they will not be bringing warning. They will be bringing judgment." Without waiting for a reply, Raymond turned, climbed back into the Rolls-Royce, and with a single wave the convoy roared to life. Engines thundered, ground shook. Neighbours watched in frozen awe as Majesty rolled away, leaving silence and fear hanging like smoke. Felix collapsed into his chair, shaking like a child. His wife whispered, "What will we do?" But Felix had no answer. Deep in his heart he knew the truth. A storm was coming, a storm named Raymond, and this time no amount of lies or mockery could save him. Hello, beloved viewers. Thank you so much for watching today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next exciting story. And please drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.